I want you to stop for a moment and think about the last thing you read on or about Africa. Can you expand that thinking to everything you've read on or about Africa? Anybody here who can say 95% of the things I've read on Africa were written by Africans? 75%? 50? 25? 5%? Good. Okay. But just think about it for a moment. Africa accounts for 15% of the global population currently, and it is projected that that proportion will increase to 25% by 2050. But we contribute less than 1% of global knowledge production in terms of scientific publications, in terms of patents, and in a knowledge-based economy. How can we actually compete if that is the reality that we face on the continent? I think the reality that development globally will increasingly depend on the capacity and ability of countries or continents like Africa to generate, use, disseminate, or commercialize scientific knowledge in ways that are appropriate to their needs and their development aspirations cannot be overstated. And if we are in a state, I mean, I've made this point many times, that no country has ever escaped the shackles of poverty. No country has ever emerged from underdevelopment to development on the basis of international technical assistance. The ability to create a local knowledge base is so central to every effort we want to make in moving Africa forward. That is so central. That is very important. Let me tell you a story. In 1989, I left my village in Nigeria. I landed in JFK for the first time out of Nigeria, and I was in JFK. I was going to the University of Pennsylvania to do my PhD. I finished in '93, started working with a big US private company. And it was a great opportunity, and I did that well. Come 1998, I got a phone call from Nairobi, and it says that a particular foundation is interested in proving a point whether Africans can think and do research. You know what your first reaction would be to those types of messages. So after I sort of got over the initial reaction, I started thinking, and then I engaged in the same discussion I was asking you to engage around what you've written, what you've read, and how many of them are written by Africans. And by Africans, and I realized, indeed, we have a point to prove. And it took me a couple of months. I quit my job, packed my bags, left my family here, and moved to Nairobi on a 2-year commitment. That 2 years has become 16-year journey and counting. The thing that took me to Kenya was just to demonstrate that as Africans based in Africa, we can do research and we can publish that research in the best journals possible. But more importantly, we can actually work with other institutions to create a critical mass of Africans with the same commitment and with the same sets of skills who are able to do the same thing. In the last 6 years, through 2 programs, one of them graciously supported by Margaret and her team at the Ford Foundation, and Andrea, I'm looking at you there, thank you, from the Kennedy Corporation of New York, we've supported the career development and skills development of more than 265 PhD students across different countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, more than 23 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, building their skills to become the research leaders that Africa needs. Being local and being present in Africa has meant a critical opportunity for us to actually engage with policymakers with the evidence we generate, and others also do generate. So we're able to engage, we're able to persuade, we're able to challenge our policymakers to adopt the right policies, to implement the right programs, to make significant impact in the lives of our people. And I don't think we could actually have gone far in achieving those levels and milestones if we are based anywhere else but in Africa. If I look at where we are as an organization, I think we've come a long way, but we only, as an independent entity, 14 years old, so we're still a teenager. We can't even get married in many countries. So we still need quite a bit of help. And somebody might ask, how can we help? For me, there are two areas that we currently see as challenges for us as a center. Yesterday, we presented to our board of directors a feasibility study that was done by KPMG Kenya to support the phase 2 development of our campus facility in Nairobi. That phase 2 development is called the APHRC Training Center. We do not believe in building buildings. We believe in building people. But we recognize that over the last 6 years, with this training of all these young people, we spend a lot of money in hotels, accommodation. Some of them go on for a whole month. As we speak, we've been running this training for another at Wits University for the whole month of November. And we realize that actually we have the land now. And if we can put up a training facility, we can save a lot and then be able to build people sustainably and cost effectively to the long term, in the longer term. That feasibility study has a price tag of about $12.3 million. It's a lot of money, but they said in 10 years that will actually pay for itself. And we have another 100 of years to actually be able to achieve the goals that we aspire to do. The second area I feel that is really an area of need is relates back to the history of the organization, APHRC. When I was requested to take over the directorship of the center in 2000 and lead it to become an independent entity, I was challenged that if we could raise a third of our budget that year, the budget was under 1 million. If we could raise a third of it, we would be successful. Because the Rockefeller Foundation was giving us full core funding, almost 95%. Today, on a budget of $15 million or more, 94% of that is project-driven. And when you create a center that you want to be a thought leader in areas that affect Africa and drive Africa, it is very difficult to do that on project-to-project funding arrangements. I think Peter spoke greatly about those. But let me just share with what that means. If I can, this year alone, we published about 73 peer-reviewed articles in very good journals. And that's on less than 6% of resources that are not dedicated to specific projects. If I can guarantee 1 day a week for all our research staff, we can quadruple that level of production, of publications in a year. If we can just guarantee 1 day that they don't have to worry about which project they are charging their time to, they can spend that time, and that will be about $1.5 million each year. But why is that important? Development discourse in Africa has been driven largely by the priorities and the difficulties and the challenges we see on a day-to-day basis. Ebola is happening in West Africa. That's where our money will go into. Tomorrow is some other crisis, and we are in this firefighting mode of dealing with crisis in Africa. And APHRC takes a different perspective, that indeed, the challenges the thing that will move Africa forward is our ability to anticipate where are we going to be in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, in 20 years' time. What are the priorities the region will be facing? And how do we create the evidence base that is required and needed to create the right policy environment for those to deal with those challenges? Let me give you a couple of examples. In In 2000, we had to persuade our board to allow us to move into the space of urbanization in Africa. If you look at 2000, even at the global stage, the level of understanding of the processes of urbanization was very minute. MDG Target 11 in 2000 said to improve the lives of 100 million slum dwellers. In 2001, we did some work with UN Habitat that showed that the number of slum dwellers globally as of 2001 was 942 million. If the world understood the magnitude of the urbanization challenge and crisis, I don't think we would have set that target so long. So for us to look at that, and 10 years, 12 years, 14 years down the road, we've created a body of evidence that is now changing. If you look at the SDGs, one of the goals is on inclusive cities and other. And it's creating a global understanding and realization that urbanization is a major development challenge. It can be a prospect for growth. It can be a concentration of vulnerabilities and all that. And we need to understand that process. And those are some of the things we deal with. About 8 years ago, we started talking about NCDs. Today is on everybody's lip. In 2005, we started dealing with issues of higher education in Africa. It's a big challenge people are dealing with now. We need people that can step back from the day-to-day running of projects to look at those priorities and begin to write about them and publish about them and create the evidence that can drive global discussion on issues that are important and pertinent to Africa. And those are the things we are thinking about, that one day a week for our researchers can actually ensure that we achieve those.